Once a radical force that challenged empires, overturned systems, and redefined human rights, feminism has become a word that means different things to different people. Today, it's a hashtag, a slogan on a t-shirt, and even a marketing tool. But behind the buzzwords and branding lies a long, complex history of rebellion, division, and reinvention. So, what happened? How did a movement that once shook the very foundations of patriarchy become something that celebrities, brands, and corporations now embrace? This is the story of how feminism was rebranded over time, transformed from a political revolution to a cultural product. To understand the rebrand, we have to start at the beginning. The first wave of feminism emerged in the 19th and early 20th centuries, in an era when women had almost no rights. They couldn't vote, own property, or even speak in public without social punishment. Activists like Sojourner Truth, Susan B. Anthony, and Emmeline Pankhurst didn't ask for permission, they demanded change. These women organized marches, gave fiery speeches, and even went to prison. The movement was raw, radical, and incredibly dangerous for its time. Its mission was singular and urgent, to claim women's full citizenship. But even in those early stages, the seeds of exclusivity were sown. Many early suffragist groups excluded women of color. Poor and working-class women were often pushed to the margins. Feminism, even at its most radical, was shaped largely by educated white elites. Still, the movement achieved something extraordinary: the right to vote, recognition of women's personhood, and a global awareness that gender equality was a fight worth having. By the 1960s and 70s, feminism had evolved into a far more expansive and confrontational force. This was the second wave, defined not just by the fight for voting rights, but by deeper social and political issues. Women demanded reproductive rights, equal pay, protection from domestic violence, and access to male-dominated institutions. It was a time of protests, think pieces, and court battles. Leaders like Gloria Steinem, Betty Friedan, and Audre Lorde brought feminist theory into the public sphere and reshaped how society understood power and gender. But with greater visibility came greater resistance. The media caricatured second-wave feminists as man-hating, humorless radicals. Politicians and pundits warned that feminism would tear apart the nuclear family. Suddenly, a movement rooted in justice was being portrayed as extreme, angry, and out of touch. This was one of the first major rebrands, not by feminists themselves, but by those who wanted to discredit them. Feminism was no longer just debated in universities or courthouses. It was being distorted in living rooms across the country. Despite the backlash, the second wave achieved lasting legal and social reforms. Marital rape was criminalized. Title IX transformed education. Reproductive autonomy was defended in court. But while laws were changing, the public image of feminism was being manipulated, turned from a rallying cry into a cultural joke. By the 1990s, a new generation of feminists emerged. They had grown up with the gains of the second wave and brought new energy, new ideas, and new challenges. This third wave focused on intersectionality, a concept developed by legal scholar Kimberly Crenshaw, which emphasized how race, class, gender, and sexuality intersect to shape oppression. Feminism was no longer just about women's rights, it was about who was included in that conversation. Third-wave feminists also embraced pop culture and personal identity in ways previous generations had not. They rejected the idea that embracing femininity was anti-feminist. Instead, they owned their sexuality, fashion choices, and individuality as forms of resistance. TV shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Sex and the City pushed feminist themes into the mainstream. Girl power was everywhere, from pop songs to toy store slogans. But this increased visibility came at a cost. Brands started using feminist messaging to sell products. Companies slapped empowerment slogans on clothing while paying women in sweatshops. Feminism became marketable, and once something becomes marketable, it becomes controllable. The movement was evolving, but so was the packaging. Feminism was being diluted into a consumer identity. By the 2010s, feminism experienced yet another transformation, one fueled by smartphones, social media, and hashtags. This era, often called the fourth wave, was digital, fast, and emotionally charged. Feminist discourse exploded online, as platforms like Twitter and Instagram gave voice to issues that mainstream media often ignored. Campaigns like #MeToo and #YesAllWomen exposed the scale of sexual harassment and abuse in everyday life, holding powerful men accountable in ways once unthinkable. This wave placed emphasis on inclusivity and real-time accountability. Trans rights, body positivity, sex work decriminalization, and mental health advocacy were now feminist issues too. The movement grew broader, deeper, and more complex, but it also became more marketable than ever. Corporations began aligning themselves with feminist causes, especially during Women's History Month or International Women's Day. Brands that had never addressed gender equity before now used feminist language to sell sneakers, smartphones, and soda. While this mainstream attention brought awareness to many, it also raised questions. Was this feminism, or just good PR? Critics began calling it commodity feminism, a rebranding of radical politics into soft, palatable slogans designed to boost sales. Empowerment was now a product. Feminists could be found on mugs, makeup, and Instagram bios. But what did it actually mean anymore? With popularity came backlash. Just as feminism became more visible, it also became more polarizing. Right-wing commentators labeled modern feminists as woke warriors or snowflakes. Online influencers claimed feminism had gone too far, blaming it for everything from declining birth rates to the so-called crisis of masculinity. Meanwhile, others accused mainstream feminism of not going far enough, of ignoring working-class women, women of color, and global struggles in favor of elite, Western narratives. Feminism had been rebranded in so many ways that its original purpose, liberation, was sometimes lost in the noise. It had become both a symbol of progress and a target for political manipulation. In some countries, authoritarian governments accused feminist groups of being destabilizing agents. In others, the word feminist became a punchline, even among young people. Today, feminism exists in multiple, often conflicting, forms. It's academic and grassroots, it's global and local. It's performative and deeply personal. There are feminists who march in protest and feminists who build policy. There are influencers who wear the label without understanding its history, and activists who refuse the label entirely while fighting for its core values. The truth is, feminism never stopped evolving, and like all powerful movements, it has faced appropriation, distortion, and resistance at every turn. Its core message that all people deserve equal rights regardless of gender has remained, but the world around it has changed. And so, feminism changed with it. Its rebranding is both a success and a cautionary tale. On one hand, it's reached millions who once felt excluded. On the other, it risks becoming hollow, reduced to slogans and aesthetics without substance. So, what is feminism today? Is it a personal identity? A social movement? A brand? The answer is, it depends on who you ask. For some, it's a fight for survival. For others, it's a badge of virtue. And for a few, it's a marketing strategy. But no matter how it's framed, one thing is clear. Feminism's rebranding reflects not just a shift in the movement, but a shift in society itself. It shows how culture absorbs, reshapes, and sometimes dilutes even the most revolutionary ideas. The challenge now is to remember the roots, reclaim the meaning, and keep asking hard questions. Because feminism was never meant to be fashionable, it was meant to be fearless.